So when you're in scarcity mindset, you make poor decisions because usually you don't seek advice. You make quick decisions.
Give me a scenario how your pride and some of that stuff affected your business and some of the things that you saw of
just not listening. It's Sean's way.
Yeah.
Ego, right? Just focusing on me.
Yeah.
How can it benefit me? So again, transactional relationships, doing it genuinely out of the goodness of your heart to help people and not expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard for most people, I think, and especially entrepreneurs, because what do I get out of this? What can you do for me? That attitude, but people see through that, and that's hard to build trust. And people want to do business with people they like and they trust.
Your stories, your experiences can change it all. Let's fight failure together. We can defeat 90.
Welcome to Defeat 90. I have with me a good friend. His name is Sean Saunders, right?
That's correct.
I always feel like
not Sanders. Got the U in there.
I want to make sure because I feel like that probably happens to you quite a bit.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Sean you're a golf coach, but you're more than that.
Yeah.
I feel like since I've met you and as you've evolved your character and who you are, like you're more like a life coach. I feel like inspiring people to be the best version of themselves and let that come through in their golf game and or in life. Am I stepping out there too long and saying that?
Yeah, I think just coach.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, a coach has many variables, to it. It has many things that you do as the psychology part, the mental game, the fitness, obviously, the, physical part is huge. And then overall health and wellness. And then obviously the mechanics of the game. So there's a lot more to it to reach your potential. So if you're missing out some of those parts, then it'll affect your overall performance.
So what I hear you saying is you don't necessarily want to take the full responsibility of life coach, but you pretty much described a bunch of things in life that need to be worked on, right?
Yeah. If you don't get your personal life right, it's going to affect your performance on the golf course. Same thing with business. You're going to see a lot of correlations between golf and business. And I wrote about that in my book. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And real fast, so they can look that up.
Yeah. So it's on Amazon, 18 Holes to Happiness. I published it a couple years ago. And awesome. It's been awesome. So
that's really, really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
So, okay, let's jump into this. Yep. One of the things that makes Defeat 90 what it is these authentic dives into where you came from, failures, your successes, and the why behind all of it.
Yeah.
And so, okay, why a golf coach? Like, or where is that where it all starts for you? Is there something else that started your business career, entrepreneurial career?
Yeah. I would say it goes back to my dad. So my dad started a car wash. He developed land above a golf course. That's why I started playing golf. It was in our backyard. He did like probably 8 spec homes that he built and sold while he was doing his sales job. So he was working crazy hours. So I got my work ethic definitely from him.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't want to be an entrepreneur because I saw what it took away from our family time-wise. So I didn't get to spend a lot of time except for on the golf course with my dad or on golf trips, things like that. So I actually was going to be an education because my mom was education. So I always wanted to teach. I had that passion. I had that gift from my mom. And I just feel like that was one of my gifts that God gave me, how to communicate and just educate people. And that I was pretty passionate about that. So I was an education major in college with psychology. So I was looking at just going into the golf business because I worked at the golf course as a bag boy. It was good. I started from the ground up and then worked my way to the pro shop. And then I worked under a master PGA pro. So I wanted to be him, I thought. So I was kind of trending that way with all the opportunities that came and education. I was trying to maybe run a country club or do something in that field. But then once I got more into it, the more I realized that work-life balance was really hard. And if I ever wanted a family and be successful, and I wanted to be a dad, so I wanted to, that was most important to me. And so, but I still had that entrepreneurial spirit in me from my dad. So it was kind of interesting. I got in the golf business, started working as an assistant pro, working crazy hours, burned out. This was before I got married, and my wife and I, or my now wife Jessica and I, we talked about it, and it was just, it was just see where God wanted me at that time, and I just felt like I needed to start a business.
Yeah.
So we got married. We were in South Dakota at the time. She was getting her master's degree. So she came out of grad school, had a good job opportunity down here in Springfield. We had 3 offers on the table. I knew Springfield had a good golfing community and good golfing area. That's where Payne Stewart was from. He was
Yeah.
one of my favorite golfers growing up. So being from Iowa, golf wasn't huge. It was more sports. But I loved the challenge of golf,
Yeah.
just like business. And I think the resiliency, I always had that. So I never gave up in any sport, and I always pushed through. And I think that led me to being a business owner and entrepreneur.
Okay. That's a lot to unpack. So
Yeah. Sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. I want to jump back to a couple
Yeah.
of things that I heard in there. Okay. So let's dive into everything with your father. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that had entrepreneur fathers and struggle with that balance.
Yeah.
Because let's just be real. Like being an entrepreneur and having a family, it's tough.
It's really hard.
The divorce rate's higher. I think it's like 65%. There is the demand of a business and the demand of the family are at constant odds, it feels like.
Especially with startups.
And so you said you didn't want to be like him. So walk through, and like I'm saying, there's probably good things there too, but there is, I'm assuming on the time part, like how did you deal with it as a kid versus how did that play out as you now as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think, the best memories I have with my dad were on the golf course. So I had his full attention. That's why I love the game. We have good talks, and I think that's what's great about golf. And you develop those relationships and you have time, right? You're out there for hours. And so that's kind of maybe what led me to golf in the industry. But I also like the prestige of it at the time, being younger. I just, the pro is kind of the man, right? And, and I liked that part of it, and just, I wanted to play at a high level myself. I was an athlete, so I wanted to see how good I could get. So I actually moved out to Arizona for a couple of years, and I took lessons from some of the top coaches out there. That's when I started learning, hey, I maybe want to do this. I want to be them, right? Teaching the game. And and starting to see the business side of that. And then also the fitness side was getting huge at that time. When I moved out to Arizona, that was when Tiger Woods came on the scene. And so I was always big into fitness, working out. And so that kind of led me to starting up kind of a combination, like you said, between not just teaching golf, but also helping people with their body as well for golf.
So did you, like, going back to that, and I think it's like, what I hear you saying is like basically that struggle,
Balance.
like you found the connection with your dad in the time you made sure that happened.
Yeah.
For you, have you ever struggled with that with your family, finding that balance?
Yes. So I'm very driven like my dad. So results driven, right?
Yeah.
And so money was kind of maybe more my idol, I guess, a little bit. When I first started, it was, I wanted to have the nice things right away like my dad had. But my dad didn't start with that. He built it. So I knew that. When I was younger, we didn't have much. He took some risks on developing land. That was a big risk, but it paid off, right?
Yeah.
So I got to see both sides of it. But I also saw the struggle. He went through a lawsuit. So it affected his health. So a lot of those things kind of scared me a little bit, owning a business. He had real estate, so he had to deal with people that were tough sometimes. And then we were in a small town in Iowa, so there's some gossip a lot, and everybody knows everybody's business. So I definitely didn't want that. I wanted to move to a city and kind of start my own. I wanted to start my own journey, instead of living under my dad.
So that kind of helped you push to find that balance, even in your struggles.
And golf was my thing, right? So once I played college golf, I played at a high level in Arizona, played a couple mini tour events just for fun, just to see how good I could get and the competition of it, and realized I was like, nah, I think I'm meant to teach and coach. And so that kind of led me down that path. And the entrepreneur thing didn't come out till I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's
Because
funny.
I was all about,
That's what we do
I was
too.
all about Robert Kiyosaki. Read all his books pretty much on passive income, which I don't
Yeah.
believe is passive. You still have to work for it.
It's so funny. So like that's been
It's not passive.
that's
Yeah.
been an ongoing thing that,
Yeah.
you know, as I talk to more of my friends, they're like, no, that's not, that's a
Well,
lie.
it's a false hope. I think sometimes like you think, oh, like, you know, even rentals, like my good buddy owns a bunch of rentals. I mean, he's always got headaches.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know,
Yeah.
same as my dad. Like he had so many headaches from developing the land to, you know, having flooding problems, which he followed code and everything. But you have challenges in any business.
Oh
And
yeah.
so you have to work for it. My new facility, we have a subscription. It works great, but I still have to take care of the facility.
Oh,
Otherwise I have
100%.
to pay somebody to do it. And so,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta find that needs versus wants, I think, and that balance, but also time. What's your time worth? And I've learned to value my family time just as much as my business time. But yeah, that struggle was real that first, I would say 5 years. I tried to turn a hobby business, teaching golf lessons out of golf courses and doing personal training for probably the first 10 years, honestly, to make it full time, which it wasn't
Yeah.
paying full time.
Yeah.
So my wife, she resented the business for a while just
Yeah.
because it wasn't producing as fast as we had hoped. And I
Yeah.
would make promises, right?
Yeah.
Hey, just one more year, one more, you know. So I think all businesses struggle with that because a startup business takes years.
Yeah.
And most businesses fail, what, 3 to 5 years? It's because the struggle's there. And when you start up, you got to pay for expenses that you never thought of.
Oh yeah. For
And
sure.
then so you're looking at, everybody looks at revenue, and I'm like, yeah, we make really good revenue, but at the end of the day, it's your profit.
Yeah.
How much do you actually pay yourself and your family?
Yeah.
And when that's less than a teacher's salary, and as a coach, well, man, I was like, maybe I should have went and became a teacher, right?
Well,
But
and that, I mean, that's the thing
that's the
that
struggle. But I love business, so it's
I
like that passion.
I think that's the key, right?
The
Like
passion. You gotta have the passion.
and also knowing like that time you're investing, eventually, if you're doing it well enough,
Yeah.
you will see a bigger harvest.
Yeah.
But are you passionate enough to keep on going through the tough times? And
Yeah.
when you know that you could be making more doing something that's easier,
Yeah.
because there's nothing in small business that is easy. I
No.
like, and the people that act like, you know, we're seeing more and more of like on TikTok and different things. People are like, you can make this, you can start now, and you can just blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah,
That's
maybe
not
maybe they
reality.
found a niche, and maybe,
Yeah.
but I've seen so many interviews with YouTubers and people that people admire and saying we work 100-hour weeks,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
between filming and editing, like there is no easy thing. But I ask myself, if you're not doing something you're passionate enough to want to work on it,
Yeah.
then you probably are doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. If you don't wake up every morning excited to build your business and to solve a problem or give value, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna burn out real quick. And so that's when I knew the first 5 years was a struggle. But I was so passionate about helping people with their golf game. But it was more the relationship, honestly. Like you
That's what-
said, it was more about pouring into people, encouraging. I think that's one of the gifts that God gave me, was being an encourager. And I've, you know, I prayed over people before, you know, my clients before. I do stuff that most golf pros wouldn't think about
Yeah.
doing, especially now, just because of what I've been through, and we've, you know, my personal life, we've fostered and adopted. So we've been through some challenges, right, from the
Yeah.
personal and the business. So I don't know. I think that resiliency is the key.
Where do you, for you, does that resilience come from?
I think you just have it.
You just have, okay. So no,
I think that's your drive.
this is okay.
I'm very driven.
So this is
Yeah,
something that for
yeah.
me that I'm exploring more, and I'm
Yeah.
going to do some more content around this.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
you know, I think that's a key part of that resilience and that determination
You
is
know,
something you're born with. You either have or
Yeah.
you don't have.
Yeah.
And I think it's a key part of being an entrepreneur and
Yeah.
being successful, because I mean, some people, they just give up so easy.
And I like to build things. I got that from my dad. He was a builder.
Yeah.
I'm not a construction guy, but man, I mean, I love seeing before and after.
Yeah.
I love making a place, starting bare bones and building something that looks awesome and bringing other people in to bless them as well during
Yeah.
that process. I think that's part of the fun of being an entrepreneur.
Well, and what's beautiful about what you do with golf and with helping people, like, because again, like you said, it's the kind of the full experience, right? So
Yeah.
as you're helping these people get better at their golf game, you're working all these other areas. You see them grow as people.
Yeah. I like transformation,
Yeah.
right? So we do programs, we don't do lesson series, right? So a lot of the old traditional way was you show up to a lesson,
Hmm.
you just give them some things to take with them, right? Here's your drills or whatever. The new approach we have is definitely like getting to the source of the problem, which is usually physical and mental, and combining those. We call it brain body intelligence.
Yeah.
And so being able to have a method that you can take them through that journey, that process, I call it, that I wrote about in my book, and and they have a true learning understanding.
Yeah.
And that's transformational because they're going to work on all areas of their life to help them, obviously, with their passion, which is probably golf. But you'll see it'll transform everything else in their life too.
Yeah.
And that's what's beautiful about the game of golf is you have to have that resiliency on the golf course, and you have to be. You're going to have a lot of you're going to have more failed shots
Yeah.
than good shots. So honestly, the best golfers are the best at limiting those failures.
Yeah.
And that's your preparation. That's your plan. We call it your yardage book. You have a plan for every hole that you play. That's true for business. If you don't have that business plan and you don't have that coach or that advisor, you're probably going to fail because you need somebody that's been through it, been through the trenches.
It's funny. I mean, that's a huge part of what Defeat 90 is about. It's like
It's huge.
like a community
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that wisdom.
I love it.
Because like trying to reinvent the wheel is just honestly
So
stupid.
hard.
It's like
Oh.
why go through the hassle of that?
My banker, give him a little shout out, Dustin Hawkins, love a guy. He become a good friend of mine, and we sat down over coffee and wrote my business plan together. I mean, what better guy to help you write a business plan who you're probably going to get your loan through, so you'll get approved.
Yeah.
And he's looking at all areas of your life, not just your business side, your personal. I mean, that's huge. If you can't get your personal finances and everything, good luck trying to get a good loan and at a good rate, and then all the other stuff that goes with that. So, I think it's wise to bring on a friend who's in the banking industry who sees failure all the time. And he wants you to be more successful than anybody because he's invested.
Yeah.
Right.
Or someone that's financially.
Yeah. Or financial planner, whatever. In
someone
those
that knows. And I think that's like having that group of different people with skill sets and mindsets that can shape where you're going, because we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses and we have blind spots. And it's something that's powerful about being around people that can cover you and say, hey, look, you're missing this part. Why are you doing that? So, okay. So jumping back, I want to go fast forward or rewind.
Yeah. Sorry. Jump around.
No, you're good. You're good. So just so you guys know, we're both ADD.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so this will be a fun, interesting
Which I would
conversation.
love to hear the percentage of people that are entrepreneurs
that
are ADD or ADHD.
Or on the spectrum.
There's something
100%.
Because we're different.
Oh,
We're definitely different. And I didn't even know it. So we adopted our boys. And then it was like, oh, okay. I started studying up on it. And I'm like, this looks familiar. So it was interesting. I didn't even know anything about ADHD, but now I know how to manage it a little bit better.
The neurodivergent side of things. It's interesting how we problem solve. Like there's a bunch of things that are tied to that. I think that you've.
But our mind tends to all over the place.
So jumping back, as we just went ADD about being ADD, which is hilarious.
Which is great.
Let's go back to that initial spot when you were a golf pro, and that spark that you said was Rich Dad Poor Dad, that made you realize you wanted to actually do a business and actually be an entrepreneur. Like, walk me through that. I know. Yes, Kiyosaki's really good about the principles are there. You want to be a passive income. You're going to be a, self-employed, the cash flow quadrant and all that stuff like that. But like for you, what resonated inside of you that's like going, I want to do more. I want to be more than just a golf pro.
It just interested me. So
Okay.
I started reading his stuff, and I was never. People would ask me like, "Man, you should own a golf store. You should, do something business wise." And I always said, "No, I'm just going to be a teacher and a coach, right?"
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to do that. So I just knew I didn't know it was going to be being a golf coach and a fitness trainer, coach / whatever, but golf performance coach is what we call it now. But, I think it planted that seed, planted the seed. Then I started thinking about my dad. I'm a lot like my dad, and the older I get, I start seeing qualities. I'm like, huh, that's familiar,
Yeah.
So that's, you learn and, I just took bits and pieces from that with having multiple streams of revenue. I think
Okay.
that was huge.
Yeah.
I think to be successful, especially in my area where it's a want, it's not a need. You don't need golf lessons, right?
Yeah.
You don't need golf coaching. You don't need personal training. You should, but you don't have to pay somebody to train
sure.
you, right? You can do an app. You can do online lessons. There's a lot of different options, right? But that's where you have to offer that value, and you have to create a business model that has multiple streams of revenue. And so we finally created that after 17 years.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I think coming from the consultant marketing, where basically if I'm not working, then I'm not making money. Like there is that weird, like as far as passive income is just a farce, but
It's important.
there is ways of making money
Residual.
that have residuals that have that they're still making money when you're not
Exactly.
actually have to be there.
Yes.
And I think that that's something that when you go from being self-employed to being a business owner is a
It's
beautiful
a big
thing.
difference.
It's
So
a
I
big
was
difference.
self-employed for, 16, 17 years. So
Yeah.
since 2009, I got my PGA membership, did it as a hobby at all the different golf courses. Obviously it rains a lot in Springfield, so starving, really
Yeah.
rough. Didn't really want to take the risk to build like a canopy and all that stuff. I was
Yeah.
looking into that as a business model, where I could teach year round and have heaters. And there's a lot of pros that do that and are successful, but they're also in Florida, different like
Better
golf
climates.
destinations,
Yeah.
right? So I had to be realistic with that. And I think that's important to get advisors where they steer you. Is this the best market? There's a golf place that's our competition, really not competition, but they're a different model, but they're here in town and that's a lot of overhead. They're taking a huge risk. So odds are against them in Springfield, honestly,
Yeah.
compared to Chicago or some of these other cities that have that same golf business. So I didn't want to go in that arena. I knew that. I didn't want food and beverage. I didn't want all the headache that goes with a lot of employees. So we have contractor coaches. Works out well because they get flexibility. They're doing well. They get to run their own business as self-employed.
Yeah.
But I feed them all the referrals. So that we did for the past 15 years, building that online marketing, thanks to you a little bit. So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
We go way back.
We go way back.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is like we just recently reconnected,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize where you were at when we met. It's like the points of struggle you were actually at of helping you out of that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I went all in. My wife, I told her, I was like, okay, give me a year. I'm going to go all in because I was working other jobs to pay the bills. And we finally got out of debt personally. So that was huge. So that helped her security. So she knew, hey, let's give it I want to give it my last shot. Right. Got my personal training certification. That really bumped up that revenue. But you're pulled from golf course to gym.
yeah.
So it was really hard to balance that. So I was all over the place. And I think that was one of my struggles is I was just spread out too much.
Yeah.
So I needed to focus, something I've always struggled with, really focus on creating a business model that's one location year round, rain or shine. You could teach and coach.
And work.
And then I could have other residual income coming in. So that was big.
So that's what we worked on.
Yeah. So 1 million cups set us up. So I spoke at 1 million cups, which I recommend anybody just getting out there and just meeting people, networking, just be strategic. Don't do what I did and join like 3 networking organizations at once. So I was more transactional relationships rather than really solid relationships. And I recommend building solid relationships like me and you had, authentic relationships instead of what can you do for me? What can I do for you? It's fake. you fake it till you make it, right? How many
Transactional.
times? Yeah, it's transactional.
It's transactional.
And
Yeah.
it's not long-term, right? Those networking groups, most of them, I don't talk to those people anymore.
What-
It is what it is. But
And once the value is gone,
yeah,
it's over.
yeah.
Versus building solid friendships and
And getting
trust.
referral partners
Yeah.
that actually care about you and they understand your heart, and your character and integrity. And I think that's important is when you form those relationships, make sure that person you're referring to has integrity before you start referring to them. Very, very important because I've been burned many times on just referring to them because they were part of my networking organization and ended up causing problems. So,
But I think that's the thing that we're seeing more and more in business. And I feel like it's getting worse is people that just want the quick buck or want
not-
the quick success.
it's not reality.
And it's not reality.
No, it
And
took
they
me
hurt a lot of
16
people.
years.
Yeah. And it hurt.
Yeah.
Well, and think about the cost. You think about how you started.
Yep. And I had
And-
no business experience really.
None,
I
yeah.
just jumped in networking groups and then
You love
business
golf.
coaches helped me, traded for marketing. You helped me. So, I mean, there's a lot of give that goes on to help each other. It's a community.
Yeah.
And it should be that way. The odds are against us. 90%.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That is
I
crazy.
didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah. Within
Yeah.
10-year period. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And there's different benchmarks along the way. Like once you get
Yeah.
to 5 years, like you're doing, like it gets less likely.
But even like hobby businesses, you can hang on, making 5,000-10,000 a year, whatever, just a supplement. But we're talking all in business,
For sure. And
Yeah.
so let's rewind again. Let's go back to that moment. You have 1 year to make it.
Yeah.
What were the failures or things that you feel like failure might be the wrong word, but things that led to that moment where you had to figure it out? Like what were
Yeah.
the things that were going, was it just the business model wasn't working or was there some things that led to that to where, okay,
I think location was huge in Springfield, especially. I've been at every part of the city. I've taught golf lessons and I was personal training on every part of the city.
Okay.
So I've kind of learned, and we ended up in Nixa, south area, and it's been good because we're right next to all the golf courses.
Yeah.
Right. We're next to the higher income families for golf, and that fits that model. So I think that was huge. I just think I needed a facility that had fitness and coaching with simulators and bays and stuff. And the technology was pretty high then. And, when I went all in. And so it was enough money to make my wife happy. Right. And I had flexibility because I could manage my schedule, but there was still a little resentment, I think, where I was not meeting my potential financially.
Yeah.
Right. I had 2 degrees, had multiple certifications, which was great because I worked at a law firm for a while, gained contacts there. I think God puts you where you need to be. Do I have any regrets? No, because it's led me to where I'm at. It created that new business model
for sure.
for 24/7 golf performance.
And also, I think the thing we don't talk about enough in entrepreneurship, this whole thing about defeating failure, I've had some pushback about it because they're like, well, failure is just a natural part of business. And I get that. I agree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with
point.
that. I
To a
don't
point.
like, I think it
Yeah.
is necessary,
Yeah.
but businesses failing is what,
And closing the doors
and closing doors for good is more what I'm wanting to overcome.
Yeah.
But I think the thing we miss in failure is clarification.
Mhm.
So as we do this, we learn, oh, we shouldn't do that.
Mhm.
Or as we go down a business model, or like for you, being a pro versus owning it, like that
It's a
transition,
big transition.
all that failure, all the pain, all the struggle
Mhm.
helps us get to a more singular focused effort of what we're going after
Yeah.
and finding that niche.
And I think to being at all those facilities, I worked for 4 businesses that failed. So that's part of why, crazy. So I got to tell you this. I went through all my golf courses that I worked at and golf businesses, right?
Yeah.
Could be golf courses, golf stores, swing right, right?
All those any places that were golf.
Any places where golf. I'm telling you, I almost bought Swing Right. Did a business plan on Swing Right Golf, which is doing great now. Great owners, great people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I 10 between fitness centers Maybe that's my ADD, right? Jumping around all the time.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it wasn't my choice. And it was poor business decisions, They didn't get help. They were control. You could tell they had problems with control.
Yeah.
It was their way and
Well,
they didn't take advice. Like,
And as a coach coming into these environments, you were subject
It's
to the
toxic.
culture, you were subject to their decision making. And I mean, that probably,
it weighed on you. Yeah.
it probably slowed you down. But here's the thing, it also gave you clarity of what you're
It was
doing now.
good, what not to do.
Yeah.
And so taking care of your contractors, nobody referred me really clients at those places.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Like a few, but not like what you thought, right? You're like,
sure.
oh, I'll come in. I'm paying a percentage, usually too high, honestly. Like after you pay
Yeah.
taxes and everything, you're like, oh, wow, I'm poverty. And I think that's why the turnover is so high with personal training industry here locally.
Yeah.
Nobody sticks with it because you can't make a living.
Yeah.
And the facilities are trying to make money off the contractors, where they should think of it differently, as the contractors are their salespeople, right?
Yeah.
So if I didn't have good contractors and coaches, my facility's not going to probably make it long term.
Yeah. Well, now seeing like what you've done and what
Mhm.
you've built and the people you have there, right? I think that's the amazing part about it. It's like all the pain of what you went through, you're now
Yeah.
helping them
It's way better.
not
Yeah.
have to go through that,
Yeah,
and also
exactly.
setting them up to succeed
Yep.
and giving them the,
But they still have to earn it.
yeah,
They still have to work. They still
For
have
sure.
to show up. They still have to be a professional. Because if they don't, well, then, I'm not probably going to send them clients.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
for sure.
I'll be fair. I'm going to be fair with all my coaches. But
that's the thing though,
Yeah. There's competition.
how to talk to them and what
Yeah.
conversations to have.
Yes.
And also
listening.
and listening and be able to coach them,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because you want them to win too.
Yeah.
And see, that's
It's a
something.
win-win. It's got to be a win-win for everybody. And I think that's what's missing with a lot of business owners is their like scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And I was there, right? So when you're in scarcity mindset, you make poor decisions because usually you don't seek advice. You make quick decisions, and then you don't take care of the people that are actually making your business better.
Yeah.
So you try to take from them, and in reality, you should sit down with them and find a mutual beneficial agreement that they can actually be your sales team or whatever, and your employees are your sales. I mean, they're your. At the golf course, I learned that I was the people greeting the members, right? I
Yeah.
was taking their bags and I was cleaning their clubs and I was getting to know them. I knew everybody by name. I knew what they did. I knew their business. And that was something too that got me entrepreneurial going, was working at golf courses, because I was working for all these business owners. So they were all my boss. The members were really my bosses.
Yeah.
The pro obviously managed me and our staff, but really it was the members, those relationships. They were the board of directors. Having that relationship with all them was the key.
So really,
So I learned from them too.
you probably learned a lot of sales techniques and
Yeah.
things from that, because I mean, to
Yeah.
take care of customer service, sales,
Yeah.
uh,
Smiling all the time. Just
networking,
being,
all that stuff like
Yeah.
that. Those are
Yeah.
valuable soft skills
Yeah.
that you learned
Yeah.
on the job. How old were you at that time?
Well, I started in high school
Okay.
working as a bag boy, and then outside services they called us, and then worked my way up to the pro shop in college, and then became an assistant pro. I went out to Arizona for a little bit, worked at a resort
Yeah.
out there. So I've worked at every type of golf business, which is cool
Yeah.
from the counter standpoint. So I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be behind the counter answering phone calls, being a pro. And I had a hard time juggling that many balls at once.
Yeah.
So I'm good at focusing on one thing, knocking it out, going to the next thing, knocking it out, instead of trying to manage, multiple things at once. So I know my weakness, and that's why business now I have help. I actually brought on a manager to help me, and she's been huge, just with the stuff that I don't have time to do and making the place that much better.
And
So
being-
improving it.
And being relational too.
Yes.
Because that's one of the things
And authentic. Yeah.
automatically hearing from like we were there the other day and
Yeah,
hearing from your members, but like, wow, she's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We're really blessed.
That's such a amazing thing to hear. So going to you, like the other day we were talking, and you were talking about a point in your life where right before you read the book or wrote the book,
Mm-hmm.
and that mindset and that growth part of you that had that change for you, was that also part of what really took your business to the next level as far as
Yeah.
working through those struggles internally that you were facing?
Yeah, there was a book that my client actually gave me. He's one of the most successful real estate people in town. I worked with their daughter, developed a really good relationship with the mom, and she gave me the book, The Prayer of Jabez.
Okay.
And at first I was like, maybe this is prosperity gospel, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I started reading through it. And I was like, okay, anything helps. And that was when I was kind of at that point where I was like going full time, and it was kind of still struggling a little bit financially. And so started praying this prayer. I was like, all right, God, prayed the prayer every day, bless me indeed, expand my borders. So mainly the influence. So it's about what God can do through you and the influence that you'll have, that he's going to introduce you to people like you, multiple people that have come into my life the last, I would say 5 years, that have had a big impact on my life. Convoy of Hope, those types of organizations
Yeah.
that just crazy how it all played out now looking back. And then, so I think just being faithful and I'm praying more, people are like, what did you change? I'm like, well, I just pray more. So I've been really faithful on that, devotional every morning, trying to stay humble, because that's one of my weaknesses is humility, because I've always been an athlete. So I think I've always had the mindset that you got to be confident.
Yeah.
You got to be in that. And sometimes it can be arrogant. And sometimes we can, then that gets you in the worldly mindset and like, I'm better than you, this kind of stuff. And so for me, I try to pray for wisdom and humility every day.
Yeah.
And I know that's my struggle. So it's getting better, but
So how does that functionally play out? Like, I mean, this is just
the
being really,
numbers, yeah.
well, I'm just being like,
Yeah.
trying to get you, like, I'm not saying you're not going to be real, but like, give me a scenario how your pride and some of that stuff affected your business and some of the things that you saw of
Just
I mean,
not listening. It's Sean's way.
Yeah.
Ego, right? Just focusing on me.
Yeah.
How can it benefit me? So again, transactional relationships, ulterior motives, right?
Okay.
So I think, doing it genuinely out of the goodness of your heart to help people and not expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard for most people, I think, and especially entrepreneurs, because what do I get out of this? What can you do for me? That attitude, but people see through that, and that's hard to build trust. And people want to do business with people they like and they trust. And when it's all about you and you're kind of like bragging, like, hey, look at me, look at this, and yeah, God's given me a gift, but I also need to use that to glorify him. And so I think it was all for me for a long time. And whether I like to admit it or not, it's kind of hard for me to admit sometimes that, I was very prideful growing up. And I needed that humility, and God definitely humbled me many times. So,
Yeah. Well, I think the part from a just functional aspect of that is, I think when you're always taking,
Mhm.
and when you're always putting people in a position where they have to choose between you and them, they're always going to choose themselves.
Mhm.
And that creates tenuous,
Bitterness a little bit.
tenuous
Yeah,
relationships
yeah,
that like when your business is dealing with people,
Mhm.
that can be,
Doesn't work.
it doesn't work.
No. If
And
everybody's selfish, nobody's willing to give. How's that working in marriages? How's that working in business? How's that working
life, in partnerships,
seen
and
it
coaching
over and over. In the golf industry, I just have to say, I mean, there's a lot of confident golf pros, and that's okay to a point. But if you're abusing your staff and you're working them over ridiculous hours just to benefit you, that's a problem. And so it's any industry.
Or you're like, hey, why are you not getting this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Make you feel like belittle people. Yeah.
I mean, I've been around those coaches that are like, well, you're just stupid. And you're just like,
make them feel bad about themselves.
So are you, my friend, because that's not how you should be talking to me.
Yeah. And you're paying that person. That's what's crazy. Like the arrogance, that comes off. Yeah.
Being on the consulting side, I cannot tell you how many times I've been with customers and they're like, they're paying me to consult them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they still know better than me. And then you're like,
why am I even here?
Why am I here? Because
it's tough.
if we can't,
it's tough.
Like,
And
if you can't trust me, if you don't believe in me, then
yeah,
why am I paying?
yeah,
But going back to like what we're saying as far as you as coaching, like there's probably that transition where when you started caring about the person, you were actually able to find the root problem. Maybe it wasn't their swing, maybe it
yes,
was something in their life, or
yeah.
when you
Because you
can't
really
see
get to know the big picture, and that's why,
exactly.
like you said, the coach is so many hats.
Yeah.
And with this new method we're doing, it's unbelievable how we can get them to change really their brain and their body, right? You got to change the brain's the
Yeah.
computer. So if we can get that to work with and understanding how the body moves and using feedback, then you're going to get way better results, right? And that's really why did they come to you? Why did I bring on a manager? I want to get results.
Yeah.
I'm driven. I'm competitive. I want to be obviously I want to be the best, right? For best version of Sean, but
Yeah.
also I want to have one of the top. I always said I want to have one of the top golf performance centers in the country, and we're doing that. Like it's cool to see, but God's got to be a part of that too, and I still have to have that humility.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there. So you want to be confident. You want to be like, hey, we're so busy all the time, but not be, I think, fake.
Yeah.
You got to be authentic and not lying.
Yeah. Well, and I think that going back to what you were saying, that scarcity mindset,
Mm-hmm.
when you are selfish, when you are prideful, when you are doing these
Yeah.
things, it it puts it in a place where you're always taking and you're where there's always lack. There's not enough for everybody to go around. And when you're at a place where you're giving and you're making people feel comfortable and you're helping them, and
Yeah.
like the entire environment and culture changes,
Exactly.
and it's where people want to be.
Yeah.
Like,
It's fun.
yeah, it's
Like when
fun.
you're working on a common goal together as a team rather than just one sided.
And because
Yeah.
it's funny, we go through, okay, so like thinking about high school, right?
Yeah.
You have the macho, like confident people, and you have the people that tear people down or bullies, whether they realize it or not, that cool
Yeah.
kids. And
That's usually insecurity.
Yeah, insecurities,
Yeah,
100%
yeah.
insecurities,
Yeah.
and things that are lacking
Stuff
in
that's
them,
going on in their
and they're
life.
trying to
Yeah.
take from people, and
Yeah.
they're trying to
Yeah.
fill that out,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But for some reason, we all want to be around them because there's this confident piece for the most part. We love to hate them, right? Like we want to be around them, but we're also annoyed with them because they and
Yeah.
there's this. But I remember the people in high school that knew who they were,
Yeah.
knew their value, knew their worth, and were inviting and were friendly to everyone, and everybody loved them. And they weren't like the cool people, but they were the people that people wanted to be around.
Yeah. They're likable.
They were likable.
They
And
have
I think,
more solid friendships,
Yeah.
relationships. And that's what I try to teach my kids.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're a bucket dipper, you're going to reap what you sow. You're going to get that back, right? But if you're a bucket filler and you pour into people and you encourage and you bless others and you're always trying to find ways to bring other people value and that's your business, that's every part of your life, you're going to be happier.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And that's pretty much 18 holes to happiness summed up and right there.
Yeah.
I just had 18 principles that I wrote about, and each principle builds on that. And it took me a long time, and I still read my book, try to read it once a month
Yeah.
as a reminder, because it's really my journal, that I wrote down. And you asked me what transpired to write that. It was prayer. And God's like, you need to write that like now. And it's crazy that I wrote that book, the rough draft, and then I sat on it and it was written, had all the main stuff, all the principles. And then I started my business plan. If I would have done it out of that order, I don't think the book would ever come to fruition.
Yeah.
And now I'm using it to bless others and share my story, but also those principles are gold.
Well, and what I love is that you're still trying to live them and like know them, like, and that's something that, I mean, like a lot of people write books just to write books.
To make money.
To make money.
Well, the almighty dollar, right? We talked
or
about
especially
that.
in the coaching space, just for notoriety.
I
or
definitely did not write
Yeah.
my book to make money. I give way more copies away than.
Yeah.
But again, that's a blessing too, because look at the connections that I've formed from charity golf tournaments, that I've given my book to. It's great marketing, like.
Yeah.
But it blesses every, and you don't know which kid. I wrote that for the junior high and high school kid, but it's really applies to anybody, and you don't even have to be a golfer, and it still applies because it's just based off of those principles that you should live by.
Yeah.
And if you want to be happy, and I think everybody wants to be happy, but
Well, okay. So let's dive into a different part of this whole thing when it comes to the pride and the like. There is a stigmas with golf,
mhm,
right? Of the elites
yeah,
and all these other things. And I think what's cool is you're
it's
seeing more
expensive.
expensive to get into. It's
Mhm.
not. What's cool is you're seeing more and more pros and professionals that are really like just solid dudes, like
Yeah,
solid, cool
there's a lot of
guys.
good pros here too. I mean, that are
Um,
solid. Yeah,
that the
all over.
character backs it up too,
Yep,
which is
yep,
cool to have good
yeah,
role models in
yeah.
that.
And they're
Um,
coaching these kids. They're building these kids up,
yeah.
which is huge.
So
Yeah,
tell me why I should golf. Why, why,
yeah,
eh,
yeah,
yes, it's a hobby,
yeah,
so on and so forth. But this is just an interesting conversation because, okay, like
yeah.
think about this. I have heard this my entire life that something like 60% of business deals happen on a golf course, right?
How do you
And
think I started my business?
yeah, right. And,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
and like
yeah.
for me, I used to be decent at golf. I hurt my back and now it's just painful. Um, but why golf? Why is that where business people do their thing? I know you had mentioned
See,
earlier on that's where you're spend a lot of
yeah.
time together, but what is it? Why should I do it? Like,
If you think about lifelong, right? That's
mhm,
why I'm getting my kids into lifelong activities: music, fishing, hunting, golf, right?
okay.
So it fits in that realm. Why did I love golf trips with my dad? We built more relationship. We'd have conversations that we normally don't have. My dad's he's a military guy, so
Mm,
you know, to get him to open up, and first time I said I love you to my dad, it's like those trips, so it's like in our family we never said I love you. You know what I mean? It's like
mhm.
it's just part of our
Like,
culture, right? And
yeah,
that's okay. There's other ways to show love, and my dad showed that through his work and providing for us and things like that. But I think that golf creates opportunities that other games you wouldn't have. Maybe pickleball, maybe, but you're moving, you're
it's just,
sweating, you're breathing, so golf, you can get in a golf cart. And honestly, the scenery, go play
being in nature.
Ozarks.
Yeah.
We're in like the mecca of golf. People don't realize like this is a great place to go. Just even if you don't golf, you should just ride around Twin Oaks with me, country club. I mean, some of the most beautiful golf courses are in this area, Branson,
Yeah.
and so we're really blessed. And I think, I was lucky to live in Arizona. So I played a lot of the mountain courses. I played some courses that are just, you're just like, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah.
It's definitely, that's one of the big reasons I love golf is like, even if I'm having a bad round of golf, I look around and I'm like, I'm playing golf. Like it's beautiful out here.
Yeah.
And usually the weather's good. And I like to play during the evening when the sunset's coming down, man. It's awesome. And that's just like it's mental health, peace. It's kind of my like place to get away from all
Yeah.
the chaos. So yeah,
No, I
it's
get
good.
that.
Yeah,
I
it's
I
good.
get that.
Yeah.
And then the one thing, okay, so for me, it's fishing. I love fishing.
Yeah. That's yeah.
I just recently got into it, like in
Yeah.
the last couple of years. And ironically enough, the reason why I got into it is because of Jack Stack. And
Yeah.
um, hearing his description of basically this one-on-one thing where it's you versus the fish, and it's really more you versus you,
The challenge.
the challenge
Yeah.
and conquering the things inside of you, right?
Yeah.
And there was just something about that like now that I do that, like I just went a couple days ago and got this massive trouts,
It's
and
awesome.
the fight.
Oh,
There's
it's a
nothing like it.
rush. It's like pheasant hunting for me, like up north. I mean, those birds like pop out and freak you out. And, you got a dog. If you have a dog, it's way easier. But if you're just out there just walking, all of a sudden, and then
Yeah,
pop, it's so much fun. That rush,
that rush,
and that
and
you can't get that with a lot of activities. Golf, it's the, 30-foot putt that you drain or the
yeah,
chip in or the fairway shot you nail or a
and,
hole in one.
and
I've
it's
had
only on
one hole in
you.
one. Yeah, it's so fun. Like you never forget. And what's crazy about golf is you'll hit a shot, amazing shot, and you're just like, wow, I did exactly what I visioned, right? Like you saw it before you did it and you pulled it off. And then you remember all the details. So I remember every detail of my hole in one.
Yeah,
I remember every detail in college when I hit it in the hole for birdie or eagle, right? So it's like, wow.
Yeah.
But like that's the memories. It's kind of fun. So you look back. Yeah.
There's this theme that's developing, right? As we've been talking.
Yep.
And something you don't hear a lot of is about pride and about selfishness. I would say sometimes it almost feels like we've made pride into be this, or confidence into this asset in business that it's almost looked at as a good thing. Like if I asked you, like 10 business owners, and it's like, hey, is pride bad? They'd be like, yes.
Mm-hmm. From a character standpoint.
From a character perspective. But then I think there's this part that's like, when you start thinking about what pride is and how it interacts in your business, that we're actually way more prideful than we actually realize.
Yeah.
And okay, so a perfect example
It's
being
like an excuse.
like the fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that concept's always got me because it's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're inherently,
authentic, yeah.
you're not being authentic, and it's projecting something you are. And I get the manifest and all this other stuff, which we'll just leave it there at some point. But my thinking being this: if I'm not good at something, I'm not going to tell someone I am good at. I'm going to be like, hey, yeah, I've done that before. It's not my greatest. If you want to, we can do it at a discounted rate, or you know what I'm saying? Like, but to project like, oh, I'm this amazing business owner. Like, let's just be real, guys. I have failed more than I have won, and I'm perfectly fine saying that, because when you start talking to me, like
you have so much experience.
There's so much experience of how not to,
not to do.
What not to, even if it's just what not to do.
Yeah, same here.
But to sit here and go like, well, you need to listen to this podcast because Jeremy Bartley is like super good at stuff. No. Matter of fact, like if
this is the opposite of like what most people are going to be like, I made millions, and we're like,
and like not saying I've been a part of that, in companies and things. Yeah. But like, here's the deal. And this is the part for me. I'd rather facilitate a conversation about the things that are hindering people from making millions or being successful in business. And to me, I don't define being successful in business as being just monetary.
Me too.
When it comes down to it, if money magnifies your character.
Exactly. So money is not evil. It's what you do with it.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. And that's exactly, we used to do budget coaching for people at our church and helping families get on a plan. And you got to think of it as, it's not yours, right? It's what we do. It's, you can receive it, but then you should let it flow too, because if it's only for you and you're just holding that scarcity mindset, that's not healthy. And eventually it'll go away. And people see that, right? People see greed. You can see that a mile away when somebody is fake it till you make it. They're not being authentic. And, usually it comes with an ego and an arrogance about it too. Kinda. And, you want to do business with people you like and you trust. Yeah. And I think it's good to be transparent and be yourself. But also be professional, right? There's a balance there. You can be authentic, but like I'm learning from my mentor is you got to be consistent as well.
Yeah. And I'm not sitting here saying like, okay, like there's two sides of this coin, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to walk up and be like, hey guys, I failed a bunch. It's like,
that's depressing.
It's
I'm a failure.
it's the presentation. It's how it's being authentic. And like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm the most successful business person in the world, because I'm not. But I would say, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, that my character speaks for my actions and how I've done things. And have I made flaws? And there are some people probably are still pissed off at me about something. Mm-hmm. That's inevitable. Mm-hmm. But I've always tried to do what's right. Yeah. And I think that in business, I've met those business owners that are crazy successful and are miserable, where enough's not enough.
Yeah. I've worked for them.
Yeah. And that contentment of where like that, what drives you, what pushes you, what makes you go forward.
Yeah. Cause you could have the most successful business, in every facet, right? You're proud, that's your baby, but it's everything. Right. And then you lose your family life. You lose your, relationships with your family or your friends. because you put that first before everything else. So there's got to be a balance
Well, and the thing is that
to be successful in all facets.
yeah, and if that's not a priority, if you're not thinking through that,
Mhm.
if you're not trying to be self-aware about yourself, you're going to find yourself in these traps, right? Because if you start trying to convince well, I need to look this way, I need this expectation of what business is and all those other things,
People pleasing.
being selfish. We talked about earlier, you see the fruit of that and how that ties to your business.
Yeah.
And like, it's easier than we think, guys. Like, for instance, okay, like I am convinced social media, I do not think it's a great thing for society. I think the stats would show the depression, the mental illness,
Yeah.
all the things that have happened since the invention of.
It's because that dopamine hit. And then we know the science behind it now, and it gets you addicted, and we all struggle with it. How much are we on our phones now compared to what we were a few years ago? Like, it's crazy. And I think it affects your relationships with your family, affects your relationship with your business. So I wrote about it in my book because it's very important for the junior high school kid, because it starts there. And if they're posting all the time and doing selfies and it's all about self, that's a dangerous place, because I think that leads to depression.
Oh,
and the dopamine hits, you have to have more and more and more, and it's just a drug. And so it's just, again, social media can be a tool like money, but you can abuse that.
100%.
And you can also, once you get out of balance, and that's why I think you have to have time limits on your phone or whatever, where you can help you manage that, because it gets out of control real fast, and you're scrolling for hours. And
and your time suck and you're gone.
Yeah, it's not good.
But I think the other thing that's really dangerous is at any given moment, when you're on these social media, you're watching a curated perspective of someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the
not
best.
reality,
and I
probably.
guarantee you, let's just be real. Like, no one's gonna be like, let's just be honest today. Here's how my life sucks, and like puts all that stuff.
Well, and the people that do that, you're like,
oh my
why
gracious.
would you put your garbage out there?
Yeah.
Like, talk to a therapist, like talk to, so I don't know. It goes both ways. I think it's good to be authentic, but just use it. I think Facebook, use it as a timeline for I think it's healthy to use it just to stay in touch with your family that's living far away or whatever. And also just posting your pictures of your family. It's like your timeline that you keep track. Think of it that way. And I think that's beneficial. But if you're using it as just a time waste and just to fill you're bored,
or
so you get bored,
or it's an extension of your pride.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing.
Showing off.
This fake it till you make it. I think we would say, oh,
I
don't fake it till I make it. But then look at how you present your life. Like, honestly, be honest about yourself, of what you're presenting and how you're presenting it.
Yeah.
And being real and being authentic is something that I think is important.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. I think for me personally, the only stuff I post on social media is for business. I actually haven't posted a personal pic or anything on social media in probably over 5-6 years.
Yeah, I've cut way back.
And it's not
social media.
It's for me. Okay, it's going to sound hilarious. I love movies. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Have you ever seen that?
No,
it's so good. You should see it. There's a part where he's, some rural part of it's Iceland, and he's trying to find this dude, and he ends up on the side of the mountain, finds a guy, and there's like a snow leopard like across the mountain, and the guy's taking pictures of it for National Geographic. And there's a special moment happens, and he doesn't take a picture of it, and he just sits there and he's like, why aren't you taking a picture of this?
Yeah.
This is what he's like, some moments are just for me.
Oh, wow. That's good.
And I think, like, for me, I know it sounds like hilarious. I literally sometimes so much judgment's going to happen right now. That's fine. We're literally talking about not judging, right?
Yeah.
As I will literally in my head just go like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll be in a moment. I'm just like, oh, this is a good moment
for me.
And just like
memory.
try to like lock it in,
Mm-hmm.
And
it's real.
It's real. And I think, but that's what makes that. These are those moments and those things of being thankful and grateful that fight against pride, that fight against all these other things. That's an internal part of you of being like, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, on any given day, there is at least probably 5 or 10 things you can go, right?
Yeah. It's easy to look at the negatives
and see
everything,
this beautiful life that you've been blessed with.
Yep. Yeah.
And be thankful.
Well, and it's easy when times are tough, and there's gonna be. It's not if, there's when, especially in business. Stuff's gonna break.
Mm-hmm.
Things are gonna happen, especially with my business model. Like golf balls are hit. It's like something happens, right? So I gotta go in there at midnight and fix it because it's 24/7.
Yeah.
So there's times where like, man. But then I like go on vacation to Florida with my family, or I go on a golf trip with my birthday buddy, and we're just out there, and I'm like, this is why I'm in business, because I can manage it from my phone, and I don't have to be there 24/7. I don't have to be there all
Yeah.
the time. So, and now that I have a manager too, that's huge, that she can do the little stuff that, so I can spend that quality time that I worked, 17 years to get to this point.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes, to be honest with you. It takes, a decade before you're fruitful, where you can go on vacation and not worry about money and not worry about your business operating. And if you set your business up where you have to be there all the time, then you're a slave to your business.
Yeah.
And so you get into business to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor and that God's given you, your family and those times that you cherish. And like, that gives you perspective. And then it's not to show off and post, hey, I went to, Europe, or went to, look how cool I am.
Yeah.
I don't know. And don't post while you're on vacation. Somebody's gonna rob your house.
Oh, God.
I think that's funny.
Oh, but,
that's it.
This happens.
Wait till after you're back
Yeah.
from vacation if you're gonna post. That's funny.
So,
Pet peeves.
okay, let's dive into that for a second. You said 10 years.
Yeah. At least for me.
Okay, so
Not at least. If you're smart and you get smart advisors, like I should have done 15 years ago,
so
right?
So
this is the crux. So if you get wise counsel that are successful, that have done it and have failed, and you learn from their mistakes, and this is where you come in, Jeremy. And this is where I come in, helping the young entrepreneurs, and we build them up, but we also shoot them straight. This is reality, crockpot mentality, not microwave. It takes to build wealth, and to like, this is investing. This is your golf game. Like, it goes across the board. To be great at anything in your business, it takes years. And I don't know, everybody's different. Some people, Elon Musk, and boom, turn it around like super fast. Like but he's also like different mind. So,
well, okay. So yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do.
So I think it depends on the individual.
It's like practice. It's like, there's a favorite quote from a book I love that Craig Rochelle wrote.
Mm-hmm.
That's about basically becoming more effective and productive,
Mm-hmm.
and developing discipline, and it's not try, train, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
mentality of like, it's the ongoing training. And if you look at it from a training, well, you're gonna have days you don't do things well, and you get better in the training, you continue to do that. So I do 100% agree with that. But then think about you as a coach, right? Your goal is to help people get to places faster.
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of the things that we face, look at that 10-year period, right?
Yeah.
How much of that was because you didn't have the right coaches?
It depends on how coachable you are. And I was not coachable.
I was not coachable. Yes.
I had mentors. It was Sean's way. It was not their way. So I've had a lot of successful business coaches that have given me free advice.
Yeah.
And so over the years, and that's on me. That's not on them. But I put that in the back of my mind, and I'm doing it now.
Let's mark that.
But it took me, I'm a slow learner.
Yeah.
It took me a decade. It took me 12 years to finally like implement some of those strategies that they told me 10 years. But
your character had to catch up with.
Bam. Yeah.
But that's the thing. Okay. So let's mark that as a huge point in this right here. Okay, guys.
Mm-hmm.
If you're struggling and you've like to speed things up, because I don't think things have to take 10 years. I think they could.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, they could take a couple years, but it comes down to, I think, if you were coaching someone, what you learn, number one would be teachable, right?
Yeah,
because if you're not doing
your work, how are you going to get the results?
And teachable is not this infinite thing of you just like submit, right? Like, I think people get concerned about teachable, like, well, because there are bad coaches,
or not a good fit.
Teachable to me is this idea of being able to want to learn always, and always be flexible, and always be in this growth mindset.
Yeah. If you're not growing, you're going,
Mm-hmm. And,
yeah, and you're going to get passed up.
and if you're not willing to change and be flexible,
Yeah.
then you're going to get stuck too.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to like dive in deep into who you are,
Yeah.
and realize, oh, you know what? I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together. But it's crazy how much of us, we know that, but yet we aren't willing to put the work in to do the things that need to change. We blame others. We either become a victim or we just put all, like, I guess that is victim mentality, blaming on others instead of taking responsibility, going,
Yeah.
like, oh, there's something.
Feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
It's the economy. How many times do we hear that, right? Over the years, it's the economy. It's the economy. No, you just weren't strategic. You didn't plan.
You didn't spend your money right.
You didn't. Yeah. You just made poor choices, and you probably didn't follow those principles, And so I think the good example. So recently, I was, at a good place with our business financially. We're over 6 figure. We're doing great, and we're excited. But I just knew something we could do better, right? The coaching was inconsistent with all the coaches. We were kind of all coaching our own way. One was coaching this, one was coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So we needed to be all speaking the same language, right? So, and I knew for my own golf game, it was bad. Like I had one of the worst tournament rounds I ever played at Ozarks National down in Branson. Didn't even enjoy it. And that's a beautiful golf course.
I was going to say, talk about humility right there.
Oh man, God humbled me big time on that day with my buddy Jeremy. He's one of our coaches and he's a good player, and I didn't help him one bit. Like I lost probably 10 balls seriously on that round of golf. It was horrid. Like worst round I ever played.
Yeah.
And I don't play a lot. That was the excuse. Oh, I don't play a lot, but I did practice a lot before that. So, and I was striping it on the driving range before that. So it was obviously a shift mental, and that course is pretty tough. So if you're not hitting the ball straight, it's going to eat your lunch. So after that tournament, I pray. I was like, okay, God, I was like, you're teaching me a lesson here. I need humility. Business is more successful than I've ever been. Had my dream facility, had all the tools to be a great golfer for myself as well. What's missing? If I wouldn't have humbled myself and not wanting to change, I wouldn't have never met Allison, my business manager and my mentor. She came right after that, which is not coincidence. Did an online lesson with her 2 hours just to test this new method that we're doing now. Changed everything. Played the next tournament right after that. Didn't lose one golf ball.
It's always a plus.
Whew, had way more fun. Didn't score great, but still, like, it was way better. Like, I had fun, right? Yeah. And, so I think that's, if I wasn't humble enough to take advice and do something different, and when we didn't have to.
Yeah.
But I want to keep growing. I want to keep learning because I kind of got stagnant with the old method.
Okay. So
with the old way of doing it.
So I think like that's that humility and that again, and being able to learn. You
gotta listen to people.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's hard.
Okay. So what's 2 more points
that
you think could have sped up your growth to getting to where you own a business versus owning a job from mentors, like advice they gave you? Like what are 2 more things that you wish you would have taken on? Maybe you knew, but you
that I would have told myself back then. I think focus.
Okay.
Like, and I think I didn't realize I probably had ADD. Like I do now. But I mean, then I was really high energy, and it's funny. I played sports, and that helped me get it out, so I could focus at school, right? Yeah. But then when you get into career, you're not working out as much. You're not getting that out. So I was kind of a high energy, all over the place. So people would say I'm squirrely, right? So it's funny. Like I guarantee you, like the old coaches that tried to help me, they're like, geez, man, this guy's intense. He's high energy. I would say passionate, but it was kind of embarrassing. I look back and I'm like, wow, I just needed to chill out and probably needed to get on something to help me. And so the stress, and I just think prioritizing. Yeah. Yeah, I was all over the place. I was in like 3 networking organizations. I was doing way too much too fast, and I was like all in, right?
Yeah.
So I burned out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Had some health, just scares. Like and I was healthy. I looked healthy, but really my cholesterol was through the roof. I wasn't taking care of myself. So I think I just needed a wake up call. And so my wife and I need to work on our marriage. Like we needed to work on all the important things. Everything.
The priority.
And working on it holistically. And I think that's what I would recommend, especially the young entrepreneur that's starting a family. make sure you get that right before you start a business.
Yeah.
Like seriously, don't go into marriage without counseling. Seriously, like that's probably the best advice. And go to Financial Peace or something, to
Yeah.
get educated on your finance. I think finances is huge. Doing a budget, I should have done a budget right. I tried, but I wasn't consistent.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the struggle for me is execution when I started. And I know it's the ADHD. I'd get going and I'd be good. And then it's like reading a book. I have a hard time finishing books.
Yeah.
That's how I know I have ADD because I start it, I'm great. And then life happens. I get distracted on to the next book, right? It's like a constant. So I think that's something that I'm getting better at.
So the pursuit of
slowing down, focusing.
The pursuit of mastery, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Because
yeah.
Well, I mean, our culture is predicated on,
but that's not reality.
Do everything like you have to be a super person and do everything. You have to do everything. You have to do
super
everything
dad,
excellence.
super business owner, super mom,
Super
or whatever
mom
it is.
or whatever,
Yeah,
all
and
the
it burns
pressure.
you out.
And it's like before you're like know it, you're doing so many things that you're so spread so thin that you're doing everything poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I think that's really that following the course.
Like, part of your plan is get enough money financially and a good, like that's where you meet with a banker that you trust or a financial advisor that looks at the big picture. And so you don't put your family at risk. Too bad. Like there's always risks. Everything we do. If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have risks. I took out a pretty small loan for what we created because I had help from my dad to build the place out and we had friends and my banker actually was up there painting and he's amazing. Like seriously, I had an amazing team.
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed for that because I was able to pay off that loan super fast.
Okay. So let's recap. Okay.
Yeah.
So point number one.
Sorry.
If you want to build I'm doing this because like I think it's important to hit these. So point number one is be teachable.
Be coachable. Yeah.
Be coachable, be willing to work on yourself, be willing to put the time in and take responsibility and listen.
Slow down.
Point number two is focus. An acronym that's changed my life is follow one course until successful.
Yep.
Focus.
Mm-hmm.
Point number three is having the right priorities, right? If I've heard you right, like getting the main thing, understanding what the main things should be.
The important things. And then point number four, you got a bonus point there. I guess you did give me planning,
three on top of that.
Planning
and that.
Getting your finances in order before you take that leap. You need to make sure that you're costing your family. So you got to start over. You go bankrupt or whatever it is.
Well,
there's a risk that could always happen because the economy, you never know. I mean, that's just business. But I think if you do the plan and you get wise counsel, I mean, I met with Tim Stack on my business plan, like for maybe renting from him at the time, so like you don't know who's going to come in your way. There you get wise counsel, listen, and don't be a know-it-all.
Well, okay. So it's counting the cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I think that, especially, this is going to the people that are thinking about starting a business that haven't started a business, or the person's about ready to take a loan out or do some drastic things. I think we don't take the time to count the cost of what things actually and look at what it's going to take, not only financially, but on time too. These are things that are super important for making good decisions. And I think we don't do that. Yeah. We just, this is going to work. I remember, so I used to be a part of, I've done this multiple times, called Startup Weekend. We build a business in 3 days.
That's cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. And part of the business plan is going out and testing the market. So you get a survey and you go out to your farmer's market.
Really good planning. Holy cow.
Or you try to go where there's a mall or wherever and say, hey, we're doing this thing. Mm-hmm. Would this be valuable to you? Mm-hmm. Would you pay money for this?
Market research.
It's
unbelievable.
People are like, oh, that's a great idea. And then they just do it and they don't talk. And it's like, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
The amount of people I talked to about Defeat 90 before I started it, they're like, oh, that's brilliant. That's no one's doing that. Because I didn't want to just do something for the sake of doing something. Even if I'm passionate about it, I wanted buy-in. I want people to be like, man, that makes so much sense. And we
can actually help other people so they don't go through what we went through, hopefully, and cost their family and, their financial, they got to start over because they made a poor decision and didn't do the market research, didn't do, I mean, my brother-in-law, give a shout out to Gabe Glenn. He owns Make You Safe and he's ultra successful in Iowa. And he said one of these guys, like one of his contacts was so cool. He sat at a coffee shop before he wanted to do a coffee shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
He sat at Starbucks and like took notes on everything that was ordered. I mean, that's like crazy marketing.
Oh, wow.
So he actually did the homework himself and took pretty much took the the stats,
Yeah.
and like figured out what sold, what didn't. And so he didn't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
He found out what worked, what sold, what
did those things instead.
The high traffic times, like when should you open, when should, I mean, that's brilliant. If you think about it, if you had the time,
Well,
sit down at a coffee shop and see what, and then you listen and you're listening to what is going on and what the environment. I mean, it was like when he explained this, I was like, that is actually genius, but who has the time to do that? But seriously, like that's pretty genius.
That's crazy.
Like market research.
Well,
there.
I mean, that's just kind of ballsy
Before he
too.
actually-
Like, to be like, can you imagine?
But he's still a client. He's still drinking their coffee. But
I
I mean,
know.
you're just like hanging out and you're creating your business plan from their
their
business. Well, think about it. Like Starbucks is a great model, or whatever
Oh my
coffee
gosh.
shop that
But
was, and you go to the most successful one, right? So why, I say this, like if you want to be successful and you want to get into that field, go to a successful business, or you want to be a successful golfer, go to the best golfer at your club, interview him.
Yeah.
Find out what's going on in his head. Find out what's going on in that business and break it down to the point like where you're like, okay, and then you can create your own flavor, right? You can create your own, that's what makes it fun. That's what makes business fun is you could try new things. But
Well, I was listening to a podcast. What was it? YouTube. Because I want, to me, market research is understanding the market, right? So I listen to a lot of business podcasts and just different things out there. And the point that was made is like, there's this, I think it's a scarcity mindset, kind of what you've talked about, but like, we think, like we get, like, how many times I've heard, oh, I have this amazing idea. I can't tell you because you might steal it. And I'm like, bro, the amount of time people have to steal ideas is not there. And yes, I'm not saying things don't get stolen, but like the reality is the amount of effort to take an idea all the way through execution. If you haven't done it, you deserve your idea to be stolen. Let's just be honest. But
it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, but there is this mentality. I think there's room for so many businesses. Like, I mean, think about in Springfield, Missouri, how many Chinese restaurants, Mexican restaurants.
Talk about restaurants in Springfield.
It's stupid.
The number, that's probably 90%. Like, oh my
capita,
gosh,
like
they go through like how many locations, and that's interesting too.
Yeah.
Go to that location, find out how many times it's been through. Like, why would you rent like from a
place that's already failed?
I see the same place over and over failing, and I'm like, why wouldn't you go check how many times it's failed before you?
It's probably low rent, whatever.
That's why, but that's the problem is you gotta, and that's another thing is like part of your plan that we did is I waited till there was the right deal. So I didn't just jump into a lease. I waited for that. And I prayed for it. Like I was like, okay, I'm faith driven. So I was like, hey, I need this.
Yeah.
All right, God. Like, and what's crazy is my best buddy is my landlord,
Nice.
So it's like, are you kidding me? He bought the property 30 days later. We had the business plan. And then all of a sudden, that opens up and it was a church. So it's wide open floor plan. It didn't cost a lot to renovate.
Awesome.
I mean, it's just crazy. But if I wouldn't have had my plan with my banker and I wouldn't have done the due diligence,
you wouldn't know what you were looking for.
And I wouldn't have had my loan ready.
Yeah.
Soon as that came open, guess what? I already had the launch monitors. I knew what I was going to get. So I already had all the stuff I need, like mentally, I knew what I needed to be successful because of my past experiences.
And that goes back to that slow part, right? Taking things slow and being executing.
Yeah, I took my time. And I was at that location. That was the longest I've been at a location. So that's something too. You got to give it enough time. I was there for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
All the other locations, they either went out of business or they failed. So it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
I just had to jump around and figure it out. But I don't think I gave it enough time to really see. I mean, you kind of know when it's like, okay, it's time to jump ship. But I think I got scarcity mindset or I didn't like the owner or something. And I took it personally.
Yeah.
And then I jumped ship right away because he wasn't treating me good. Right.
Yeah.
So again, it was about Sean. It wasn't about what's best for everybody. And I think that's a good principle to live by.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start to move towards wrapping up, what's something that we haven't covered in your entrepreneur journey that you think is really important to share with our audience?
I mean, I think we hit on the main principles that I like write about in my book and I, try to talk about, but relationships, transactional versus authentic relationships. I think you can't say that enough. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, and I think treating people better than you want to be treated. Not just if you want to be successful, think about how you want to be treated. Now treat them better.
Yeah.
That's a wholly different shift, right? Like we know the golden rule, everybody knows
Yeah.
it, but do we live it? Right? It's easy. Like everybody, like you may read the Bible, you may listen to all these sermons and all that, but if we're not actually putting it into action,
Yeah.
and so action is the key.
Yeah.
You can have all these great books that you're reading up on your shelf, but you gotta put it to practice, just like you did with this. I mean,
Yeah.
this is unbelievable. So I think the best advice, outside of what we already hit on, is that I would give to myself 15 years ago when I started, 16 years ago. Is be authentic, but be consistent. Authentic with your best friends, and I learned this from my mentor recently. But consistent in business. Don't treat people differently just
Yeah.
because one person has a bigger pocketbook than the other, or they're more
Yeah.
successful, or whatever it is. Treat everybody the same. Treat
Yeah.
everybody better than you want to be treated, and watch what happens. The fruits of your labor. I mean, and money flows. The more you give financially and your time, you're gonna get it back eventually. People want to help other people that are givers.
Yeah. Okay. So ending it with this, there's two last things. What's a moment of failure that marked you, that you won't forget? That's something that happened. You were like, this is a life lesson that it's marked you, your conscience.
Yeah, I think just there wasn't like one. I think it just when I think those first 10 years of my business that I struggled financially. Success is defined different ways, obviously, and I built a lot of great relationships. I think that's why my business is successful now, because all the networking I did.
Yeah.
But that takes years to get referrals,
Trust. Yeah.
referrals and trust, and online social media obviously played into that. Building your Google reviews and all that stuff, building trust, right?
Mhm.
I think that the change was the shift was the Prayer Jabez. That book really, I wrote about it in my book. It was impactful because it came from a client, and that client I looked up to, and it was ultra successful financially. And I just think I heard what he does every day, and he's very faith driven. Wisdom is his big thing, and so I think there's a reason he's very successful.
Yeah.
Is because of that. So I think that was the shift in 2016 when I went all in, and I treated it more like, okay, this is God's business, not just my business, and living for a higher purpose rather than just for me.
Okay.
And so that was the big change for me.
Gotcha.
And rechanging my life and how I balance things and how I looked at things and being less selfish.
Yeah. That's good. All good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. Okay. We talked about how the 90% failure rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why? What do you think why the 90% failure rate exists, and how do we defeat it?
Lack of planning. So lack of counsel from people that have been through it.
Okay.
SCORE was a big nonprofit that I kind of met with the guy that was
Okay.
free.
Yeah.
So if it's financially, like I can't afford to hire a business coach. I can't afford, there's nonprofits out there that people that want to do it out of the goodness of their heart, they want to help. And there's people like you and me. I would sit down and Tim Stack did, Jack Stack's son. I mean, he sat down with me, didn't have to. He's busy building that empire. So, I mean, so I think listening to wise counsel, you got to listen. You got to be coachable.
Yeah.
And I think execution, focus. Don't just talk about it. Everybody got great ideas. Everybody got great ideas, but you got to execute those ideas.
Yeah.
And so that's why I've gotten really good at, I think, because I'm tired of the same, right? Insanity of business. And I call it the insanity of golf.
Oh yeah.
It's like I coach a client and I'm like, we're doing the same lesson, session over and over and over and over. Like, okay, Are you going to do the homework? Are you
Oh,
going to
yeah.
do, you still gotta put in the effort. You can't just get the knowledge,
Yeah.
and there needs to be good coaching too.
Yeah.
So that method, how you coach, and that's where the business coach and interview people. If you are going to bring on somebody as a manager or somebody to help you out in business to get you through, interview them and take your time and listen
Yeah.
to see if they're a good fit. Don't force it just because you need to fill that need. I made that mistake recently. It's like I'm trying to fill that void and I forced it and it made me look like a fool.
Yeah.
So I think that's big. Yeah.
Okay. Any last words before we end this?
It's been fun, Jeremy. I'm excited what you're doing. And, I think one of the things that we can do is encourage.
Yeah.
Because I think more business, especially startups, is they feel maybe alone. They feel like, it's all on them,
Yeah.
and that stress and that pressure will kill you. So I would suggest any startup, you're passionate, you have your dreams, you have your ambitions and what you want to do financially, all that, but make sure you get your priorities right. Make sure you take your time, do your planning, talk to wise counsel, and I think you'll be a lot better success. And hopefully you can change that 90%.
Let's do it.
That's the goal.
Let's do it. Let's defeat
go.
90.
Let's go.
Your stories, your experiences can change it all. Let's fight failure together. We can defeat 90.